we basically cannot sell kale at our market anymore because people were coming all of the time buying kale. I'm like, well, why don't you just take some seeds and grow it yourself? And so now all of our neighbors, a lot of our neighbors have their own gardens. And not great salesmanship on my part because we lost customers, but our mandate is definitely to like encourage and spread gardens in the city. And yeah, a lot of them have gotten really interested and do their own garden now.
Welcome to the Food Garden Life Show. We think that growing and cooking together builds families and builds communities.
Our goal is to inspire and inform with stories and ideas about gardening, food, and people, and we give gardeners permission and confidence to challenge the rules.
Brought to you by Emma and Stephen Biggs. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hey everyone, I'm Emma Biggs and thank you for hanging out with us today on the Food Garden Life Show. I'm a Gen Z gardener, author, speaker, and blogger, and my passion is growing tomatoes, trying new and unusual crops, and saving seeds. I'm also the author of the kids gardening book, Gardening with Emma, and my co-host here on the show is my dad, Stephen.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephen Biggs, food gardening guy, horticulturist, author, and horticultural journalist. Today on the podcast, we head to Montreal and we'll hear about an urban agriculture training program. It started out as a one-week intensive program 8 years ago, and it's grown into a full-season program with a weekly market. Jackie Martin, a coordinator with City Farm School, tells us that their vegetable plot is the size of a soccer field, and that's not all. There's a plot with medicinal plants too, covering another quarter of a soccer field. As regular listeners know, we're interested in the human side of growing. You'll hear how students from City Farm School are expected to give back to the community. You can find City Farm School online at cityfarmschool.com. A shout out today to Cheryl, who told us about City Farm School. A shout out to Madden, who enjoyed the PTSD episode where we chatted with Nahum. Thank you, Madden. And a shout out to Ray, who sent a note to say he loved the foodscaping episode. Also a shout out to Bo, and thanks for mentioning the Food Garden Life Show in your Instagram story. A hello to our listeners on Reality Radio 101. We love hearing your feedback, whether you're a Reality Radio 101 listener or a podcast listener, or whether you're just tuning in through our website. And you can drop us a line through foodgardenlife.com.
Do you have show ideas, questions, or feedback?
We want to hear what you think. So tell us. If you drop by foodgardenlife.com, you can email us, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we hang out under the handle Food Garden Life.
And you can also find me on Instagram as EmmaBiggs_grows, and you can also find me on my website, emmabiggs.ca.
And now, here is our chat with Jackie Martin from City Farm School in Montreal.
Jackie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it since I got your email.
Well, we're excited to find out all about City Farm School, and it's actually one of our listeners who said you have to reach out to City Farm School and find out what they're doing. Maybe we could start by getting you to tell our listeners, what is City Farm School?
City Farm School is an urban agriculture training program here in Montreal. And what we do is, well, we have a couple of streams, but basically our idea is to have people follow an urban farm through the entire season, whether that's vegetables or medicinal plants that we're growing, and kind of shadow the farmers and learn along the way all of the steps that go into that.
Maybe we could talk about the different streams that you have. You mentioned there's more than one stream. What do those include?
So currently we have two streams, like two educational streams running at City Farm School. One is the Market Gardener program, and the other is the medicinal plants. The Market Gardener program, what we do is Our students start with us in March in the greenhouse when we're growing the seedlings, and we do a seedling sale. And we also are preparing our seedlings for the farm that we have. And so they follow us right from the beginning when we first start planting the seeds in the greenhouse. And then in May, we move out to the farm and we do transplanting. And then around June, we get our little community market going, and the students participate in like preparing the food for the market and staffing the market. And then all the way to the end when we collect seeds for the next year.
Now, could we jump back a little bit and could you tell us how this all began?
Sure. Yeah, this began, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago now. And City Farm School was created originally as a 1 week kind of intensive program by Arlene Throness and Marcus Laub from the Concordia Greenhouse. And what they were doing is they were responding to a lot of interest from people who wanted kind of a more intensive program. They wanted not to just to have a workshop here and a workshop there. They wanted something that was like curated to give them all the information they would need for a season. And I was actually a student in that first round of City Farm School, the 1 week version.
Ah.
And yeah, which was pretty neat. I liked that. And then after doing that, I was volunteering at some gardens that were run by those coordinators. And luckily, Marcus asked me if I wanted to join the team because Arlene was moving away. And so after doing, like, me being a student and him running the 1 week program, we were thinking about it throughout the season and thought it would be a lot better if instead of giving everybody all the information for a whole growing season in 1 week at the beginning, if we could space it out so that people got the information in a timely manner. So we created a program where there's like a 1 day training on seedlings in March. And then in June, right before the bugs come out, there's a 1 day training on pest control and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of how it was born. It was like Marcus and I spent a lot of time talking that winter and like dreaming up what we thought would be a great training program for people doing what we were doing. And then luckily Concordia University liked our idea and they agreed to support us for the first year to get on our feet.
I'm interested to know now the people who come to the program, is it all students from within Concordia? And are they from certain streams at Concordia?
No, our students, it's open to anybody in the community. You don't have to be a Concordia student to participate. So most of our students are, I would say, like between 25 and 40 years of age. And they're generally people who have like a passion for agriculture. Some of them are interested in maybe becoming a farmer in the future. A lot of them are homesteaders. Quite a few teachers who like want to get involved in their school and have a garden there. So yeah, it's open to everybody, and we get a little bit of everybody who comes.
And for people who don't know Montreal, maybe you can tell them where within the city this farm is located.
We work out of 2 different locations. One of them is really unique. Concordia University is our partner in that they allow us free use of some of their spaces to run our program. And so the one space there's a greenhouse on the 13th floor of a building in downtown Montreal, Concordia's Hall building. And so they let us use that, and it's kind of cool, like being right downtown Montreal and gardening. And we have like one of the best views in the city because it's a greenhouse 13 stories up. So
wow,
it's a pretty special place. Yeah. And then once we move out to the farm, that's in NBG. So that's a neighborhood further west. It's not downtown. It's just off the metro lines. It's a more residential area, and it's really peaceful. And our neighbors there are our biggest supporters and always have been. So again, we're kind of very blessed to have like 2 unique locations to work out of.
Okay, and how big is that other farm?
The other farm, well, the vegetable portion is, I'd say, just less than a soccer field in size. And the medicinal plants would, let's say it's a quarter of a soccer field.
Okay. Wow. So good size spaces when you're operating in an urban setting like that.
Yeah, they're really nice big spaces to use.
Now, you said something, Jackie, that caught my attention, and I think it's a nice lead into what I wanted to ask you next anyway. And you said that your neighbors are your biggest supporters. And I wanted to ask you about community outreach and how you're connecting what you're doing at City Farm School with the community.
Our neighbors that like are right adjacent to us are always there and involved and incredibly encouraging, especially during this last year with the pandemic. Like very, very much just like a source of encouragement for us. And then like sort of the wider community, the campus at Concordia is a really open space. A lot of people use it to walk their dogs or have picnics. And when they come by, they see the farm. And then that's where we got the idea to have a little farmer's market there. So once a week we have a farmer's market, and a lot of the neighbors come and support us by, purchasing and talking with the students and again, giving encouragement. We also try to give back to the community. One of the components of the program for the students is that in order to graduate, they have to teach a workshop that's like free and open to the public. So they spend like the 8 months sort of like being participants in workshops that we set up for them. But then before they finish, they have to do their own. And then that's another way that we try to connect with the community and like share the skills that we've been acquiring over the season.
Nice. And so what are some of the workshops that students have done in the past?
Well, geez, it's kind of all over the place. We leave it really open for them. Like some of the more interesting ones have been like herbal medicine for your pets.
Oh, wow.
Or edible weeds. There's been a few people who have like taken people on a tour and taught them what are the quote unquote weeds that are food if people are interested. Pest control, seedlings, fermentation. The topics go on and on.
And it sounds like there are a lot of community members who are really excited about this and visit the farmers market. But are there any community members who maybe they've become more interested in farming and urban agriculture because of what you're doing?
Oh, for sure. Like we basically cannot sell kale at our market anymore because people were coming all of the time buying kale. I'm like, well, why don't you just take some seeds and grow it yourself?
Huh?
And so now all of our neighbors, a lot of our neighbors have their own gardens, and not great like salesmanship on my part because we lost customers, but our mandate is definitely to like encourage and spread gardens in the city. And yeah, a lot of them have gotten really interested and do their own garden now.
That is true outreach when you have your neighbors growing kale. I love it.
Right? Yeah.
I'm curious about how the farm is run and the organizational structure because there are so many educational institutions that are sitting on a lot of land. And if people are listening wondering, boy, I wonder if we could set that up at our college or university, they might be wondering, how is it set up? How simple is it? Can you give us some insights into that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, for us, like we were really fortunate at Concordia. There's a group called Sustainable Concordia, which is a multi-stakeholder organization that involves students, community members, staff, and faculty. And they were supporting us, Marcus and I, when we were creating the program. So through that multi-stakeholder group and the support from there, they put us in touch with the decision makers at the university who were then able to we had to learn how to make a proper business plan and how to make a pitch and create a curriculum. But we did that, and the administration at Concordia were they took a chance on us basically. So yeah, we were lucky that we were given those connections through Sustainable Concordia, but it was just as simple as talking to the right person and getting the green light.
Okay, and with everything that's going on now with COVID-19, how has City Farm School changed during this time?
Well, we did something I never thought possible, which was we taught people how to grow seedlings over Zoom. So
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, what we did is like it was approaching March when we would normally have people coming to the greenhouse and growing seedlings with us, and we were like, how do you teach something so hands-on? Like, how do you teach somebody to feel the moisture content of the soil when you can't see them? And so what we came up with was we created kits, like Rubbermaid totes, and we put seeds, pots, soil, compost, fertilizer, watering can, everything that the students could need in these kits. They picked them up, and then once a week we met over Zoom, and we would together start our seedlings and do our transplanting from our own homes.
Wow, that's great because, like you, I've always had the impression that gardening is something where you need to be in person to teach. So kudos for finding a way to make that work by Zoom.
Yeah, it was like it was really kind of a pleasant surprise, like how well it worked out. And especially like one of the things that I guess City Farm School I was really happy about is like gardening makes people happy and you make friends, you create community. And we were worried how that was going to go over Zoom. But even that like carried through. That people are keeping in touch and sharing seedlings with each other. So yeah, it was a great success.
Nice.
Talking about keeping in touch, I'm wondering about former students who've gone on to maybe do something more with gardening or farming. Do you hear back from people and is there a network of alumni, if you will?
Yeah, I'm lucky. Like, I hear back from people all the time. There was actually, I think, three former students this year contacted me regarding seedling schedules because they're all growing seedlings in greenhouses, and a lot of them are working for community organizations.
Hmm.
And we've got some former students who've gone on to become farmers, and lots of teachers who are then like setting up gardens in the schools. Um, yeah, we haven't had any like formal network to keep everyone in touch with each other, but we recently had a documentary launch. One of our students created a documentary about City Farm School, and again, we launched this on Zoom maybe 2 weeks ago. And what came out of that was that we need to create like a proper alumni network and a mentorship program.
The documentary, is that something that we can connect our listeners with online?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had the chance to like make it public yet, but it is on YouTube and I can send you the link.
Wonderful. And then I'll put that in the show notes for this episode.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, it's a beautiful documentary.
So from what you're saying with alumni going on to work in the school system and community organizations, there sounds like there's a really big trickle down effect here.
Yeah. Yeah, there really is. Like a lot of the other organizations that we partner with now are like organizations that were created by our former students. So it's been pretty successful in that area. The people who take the program take it really seriously, and then they go on to do great things.
And you're changing the city and the world one plant at a time, one person, and just growing more gardens.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. It's really been such a pleasure to be a part of this.
And Jackie, I just thought I should clarify for our listeners too. These aren't students who are studying agriculture. They're doing this out of their own interest as a not for credit course. Am I understanding that right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they're not agriculture students. A lot of our students are actually people who have already finished their post-secondary studies. Because yeah, so it's not accredited program. It's like we're a separate not-for-profit community organization, and Concordia lends us land.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to ask you too. You mentioned kale is one of the many things that you grow at the farm school. What is your favorite plant to grow?
Oh, that's a good one. It changes every year. It generally depends on which were my favorite seedlings, but this year it's the cucumbers. Yeah, the
Okay.
national pickling cucumbers. Yeah, that's my favorite this year.
Nice. And do you have a favorite type of pickle, I have to ask?
Dill pickle.
Okay.
So, Jackie, I'm hoping now some of our listeners will be thinking they have the gears going and they're thinking about how they could maybe set something up at their organization or in their public space. And do you have tips for people on how to get this kind of thing to work?
For us, like one of the key things was like in the university, in a big organization like that, we had people who were supporting us at all different parts of the university, like people to encourage a yes when we ask. So that was like the gardeners who already work on campus, like making sure to talk to them and tell them what you think and learn from them and create a relationship there, as well as like their professors at the university who do things that are interested, like let them know what you're doing, get feedback. And then once you've sort of like eliminated any no's or created relationships with people, it's very easy for the people in the decision-making capacity to say yes to you because you're not stepping on anybody's toes, so to speak.
Okay. So it sounds like building bridges wherever possible.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And it's pretty easy to build bridges when you have a lot of plants to give away.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone loves that.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for making time for us today. And before we finish up, can you please tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you and everything that you're doing at City Farm School?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if people want to get in touch, we have a website, cityfarmschool.com, and through there you can find my contact information, Jackie Martin. I'm the market gardener coordinator, and my co-coordinator, Chesley Walsh, is the medicinal plants coordinator, and you can reach us through there.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us. That was really fun.
Thank you.
That was our chat with Jackie Martin from City Farm School in Montreal. You can find City Farm School online at cityfarmschool.com. What did you think? Something that struck me was Jackie saying a lot of the organizations that City Farm School now partners with were created by former students. If success is inspiring change and inspiring leaders, that sounds like success to me. I was also interested to hear how something like City Farm School could grow out of a university setting, this complex bureaucracy that could be difficult to navigate. Jackie talked about building bridges so that it's easy for people in decision-making roles to say yes. And as she says, it's pretty easy to build bridges when you have plants to give away. As we wrap up today's episode, I'm remembering the summer I spent as a teenager working on a dairy farm. It was my first time milking cows. I learned the difference between hay and straw. I remember the heat in the mow of the barn as we stacked bales. I remember the dust, too. It was also my first time driving a tractor, first time driving a manual transmission, and I can still picture the farmer cringing when I tried to change gears but only managed to get a shudder and a long grinding sound. At the time, the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture ran a summer program called the Junior Agriculturalist Program. It gave city youth exposure to farming. That immersion in farming for a summer opened my eyes to many new things. Experiential learning, whether it's City Farm School or a stint on a farm for the summer, can give so much more than a textbook or a YouTube video. If this episode piqued your interest in building community through urban growing, you might like the June 2020 episode entitled Growing People, Networks, and Food. And in that episode, we speak with Atlanta urban farmer Maurice Small, who is using urban farming as a way to build community and grow youth leadership. The podcast is back next Thursday, but before that, Next Thursday's podcast starts out as our live radio show on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on realityradio101.com. You can send in your questions for our guest, and we have a real treat for you because Christy Wilhelmi, who runs the website Garden Nerd, is also the author of a brand new book. It's called Grow Your Own Mini Fruit Garden, and Christy joins us to talk all about growing fruit in gardens and in containers. So next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, tune in live, realityradio101.com. We'd love to have your questions. You're listening to the Food Garden Life Show. I'm Stephen Biggs.
And I'm Emma Biggs. Thanks for tuning in.